Hey, welcome back to the channel, everybody. My name's Tim. This is Crooked River Homestead Off Grid. Well, if you live here in New England, you know it's been quite a winter. Seemed to really come early this last fall. I don't remember the first snowfall, but maybe October sometime. Anyway, it just seemed to hit hard and quick, and it didn't really let up much. Actually, it snowed a couple days ago. It was 19 degrees this morning. It's about 60 degrees right now, so spring's definitely here. We still got another week or two before we can get out of the sub-freezing weather, and that'll change things a little bit more in the positive for us in terms of some of the things we do to get by day to day here in terms of power and heat and water. But I've been other than just trying to be in survival mode every day throughout the winter, getting the basics and trying to just make sure that we have what we need to get through the day in terms of power and water. It's been a struggle. I learned a lot this past winter. In some ways it was more difficult than the first winter, and in some ways it was a little easier. Just basically the way we got caught last fall, not being able to get set up as quick as we wanted to, or maybe not as quick, but the way we wanted to get set up, the way I wanted to get set up with our power and whatnot. But we did the best we could before it really froze and locked us in, and I guess I was kind of hoping we'd have a little more mild winter, but that would allow me to get some things done. Unfortunately, that just didn't materialize. It was, as I said, if you live here, you know, it was, I'd call it a good old-fashioned winter. So, you know, other than just trying to get through day to day, I was, you know, my mind's always working, trying to figure out, you know, what projects we got to get done. If you've been following the channel, it's Brenda and I have been living here off grid since the end of 2024 when we bought the property. You may have seen recently, Brenda actually 2 days ago, had a hip replacement. So she's laid up inside right now. She's going to be in recovery mode for a month or so probably, but look forward to her being back to her old self and healthy and mobile. It was kind of depressing to see her in pain and trying to get work done here on the homestead. She's not one to sit still very long, and so every time she walked around, she was a little limpy and in pain, but she managed very well, and we're hoping this surgery will make things a lot better for her. I think they will. But in the meantime, as you can see, we got a beautiful day here, and I've been itching to get back to work, trying to, in my mind, get the priority projects lined up. I'm already thinking of next winter. Basically, you know, I've got about 6 months of decent weather, summer weather, spring, summer, fall, typical New England weather. So we're hoping for some decent weather that will allow us to get in a better situation in terms of our power and water and whatnot. So I thought what I'd do right now in this video is kind of take you for a little walk around the homestead and try to explain some of the things we've got lined up, some of the projects I've got lined up in my mind, what I'm hoping to get done, priorities. So it's going to be maybe a little bit longer of a video in terms of just trying to explain things a little bit, but it'll give me a chance to kind of line things up too and show you what we've been working on and what we're focused on working on for the summer coming up, in hopes that by next winter we're a little bit better set up and a little farther along in our project here. As you can see, I've got a couple wrapped up pallets behind me. You can't tell what's underneath them, but I got 3 pallets of concrete. And so I got a little bit of concrete work to do. And that's because when we moved here, everything landed in our containers. I've got a lifetime of tools and equipment, I guess you'd say, because, well, that was my business. I was a mechanic most of my life, and that's the kind of stuff I enjoyed doing, what we're doing here. And we've got to, one of the things we're going to do, which I'll take you around and explain, is we've got to move these containers. We've got 4 shipping containers, 3 40-footers and 1 20-footer. And I'll explain what we're doing with each one of them. If you follow the channel, you know we were able to get our pads poured. I've got one right behind me over here, another one over here. This is the area where our barn is going to go. And I don't know how far we're going to get in terms of getting the barn done. Obviously, we'll get as far as we can. As I mentioned, it's just Brenda and I. It's just the 2 of us working on this project pretty much. There's some steps along the way that I will need some help with. But for the most part, I'm going to try and do most of it myself, me and Brenda, basically because that's what I enjoy doing. We're not in a big rush to get this project done. Obviously, we want to make every step that we take towards being a little bit more comfortable and getting a little bit better in terms of just being able to live a more normal life, I guess you'd say. It's been a little difficult living in the RV, but we've made it very comfortable. And this past winter was better than last winter in terms of being set up better. But in some other ways, I gave myself more work because of some of the things that we ended up getting set up with. I'll try to explain that a little better. So I'll take you on a little walk around and kind of explain some of the projects I got lined up. I got a lot of stuff going on in my head in terms of just trying to figure out my priorities and what I can get done as quickly as possible. But one of the first things I need to do is I need a work spot. I need a workplace. I need a place where I can get all my tools in, all my equipment, all the stuff that I'm going to need to get this project happening. To date, it's been kind of it's been hectic because when we initially moved, everything ended up in our shipping containers. So I've got one 40-foot container that's just jam-packed with all my tools and equipment. We've got a second 40-foot container that's all filled with all our home stuff, all the stuff that came out of our home, our previous home. And then 2 other containers that have some miscellaneous stuff that we just got to find homes for. And that's been a challenge in itself because we obviously don't want to leave anything outside. But at the same time, we are concerned because obviously between the freezing in the winter and the extreme heat in the summer, it's not good for the stuff that's inside the containers. So we are in a kind of a rush to try and resolve that issue, try to make sure that we can not lose anything, basically. We've done all right so far. Everything seems to be fine, but I have one major concern, and I'll get to that when we get to this one particular shipping container. So I'll take you around, kind of explain a little bit about, for those that are new to the channel, where what we've been doing up to now. And for those that have been following along, basically trying to get you caught up and where we're going to be going from here. So thanks for joining us. We appreciate you subscribers that have commented and share our videos. We're trying to keep a log of what we're doing here on the property and trying to keep people that are interested in what we're doing here. We hope this summer will be show a lot more progress. Last summer was a lot of groundwork and trying to get things to a point where we can get to this point, basically, where we're ready to start actually the construction part of the project. So with that said, I'll grab the camera, take you for a little walk, kind of go over some things, and let's get started. So if you followed us last summer, watched some of our videos, you know that we had rented some big equipment to initially try and address some issues we had with water on the property. And last winter was kind of fun, not this past winter, but the winter before, our first winter. We had lined up our RV here, and it wasn't exactly in this location, but pretty close. And we had a problem with the property when we initially purchased it. I'll see if I can slide a picture in here and show you. It was basically just a problem that I saw when we first looked at the property the first time. And my mind for trying to resolve the issue was basically not to redirect the water, do anything that would change the path or the flow, but basically just try to give it more of a dedicated location to go instead of spreading out all over the property and making it all wet and unusable. So one of the first things we did is we built a little retention pond over here. And this is only about maybe 5 or 6 feet deep. And it's not very big, but you can see what it did basically is it allowed the water to collect in one area instead of just spreading out all over the place and making the property unusable. And what I did was I took the fill that was in here and pulled it back up in this area and raised everything probably close to 6 to 10 inches in areas. Did the same thing on the back part over here. We just dragged some of this dirt material over here and we pulled it up this way towards the center. And that just made this whole area usable. Obviously you can see we got the pads over here, and previous to that it was pretty much just wet. Couldn't do anything with it. Not sure if that's the reason why most people turned away from the property, but at any rate, basically what happened was we have water flow that comes down from the back of the property up here, and we didn't change any of this. This was existing when we got here, and it actually dries up in the summertime. It doesn't flow. There's nothing. Last summer it was really dry, so we didn't have anything, and that worked out great because it allowed us to get in here and dig this area out. And basically, like I just said, we were able to pull all the material back up here and made this whole area just usable. We had absolutely no issue this spring, and it really just kind of put my mind at ease to know that we probably won't have any issues with water going forward. There's one thing that I ended up doing at the last minute last fall. One of the things I did is I had marked the first spring, I should say, last year. I'd marked a high water mark on the well over here that we dug and we installed last summer. Actually, we installed it the first fall we were here, so I've been 24. So by spring of 25, I had marked the high water mark, so I kind of knew what I had to work with, and that it had hit the high water mark a couple times. I'll take you for a walk over there and show you actually. So I kind of was comfortable with knowing for sure exactly where that was going to be, and that gave me a place to work from. It's kind of faded a little bit right now, but I think it's right in this area here. That was our high water mark. And so based on that, I installed the culvert thinking that the culvert would be able to, once the water came up to that level, this culvert right here, the water would flow in there and continue its way over to an area over here that it ultimately wants to go. I'll take you over here. And like I said earlier, we didn't really change where the water wanted to go. We just gave it a more direct path. And it comes down into this area here. And I was able to observe, again, the water level in this area, which has been wet for who knows how long. And we own a good portion of this property up in here. So this is our wet area here that it dries out again in the summertime. It doesn't really stay wet. It's just primarily runoff. But what happened was the culvert comes out over here, and you can see it's dry right now. But what I discovered was last winter, what happened was the water came into the culvert and froze. And so it was pretty much useless. It wasn't flowing until it was able to melt off. And so that didn't really work out too well. So just before winter came, I was able to get in here and dig a trench. And this trench comes from a retention pond over here. And you can see we got a little footbridge going over here now, just so we can access. So all summer, this wasn't here last summer. This was all filled in, and I was relying on the culvert over here. But last summer, if you live here in New England, you know it was extremely dry. Wells were going dry. It was just very dry towards the fall. We hadn't had rain for quite a while. We were actually concerned our well was gonna get low, but it actually stayed pretty good, and we had water in the well, so we weren't too concerned with that. It was a good test because it told us that even with the extreme dry weather that we had, our well here, which is 3 casings deep, these are 4-foot casings. You can't quite make out I think the bottom of the first casing is right here, so that's 4, and then there's another 2 below that. And we had water in the well all summer. Even when everybody else was running dry, we still had water. So the water table's just naturally high, which was good to know. We hopefully won't have any water problems going forward. But digging this trench out at the last minute last fall was really the secret sauce, really, because what that allowed is the water, as I showed you earlier, that came down from the hill over here, comes in here, and then eventually works its way through here and exits back into where it's always wanted to go. As I mentioned, when we purchased the property, this whole area here, instead of it just accumulating in this area, was just spreading out all over this whole area here. And we had our RV somewhere around where this pad is, and water was, I think, flowed right underneath the RV last spring. It got as high as it did this spring, but it just we hadn't had a chance to fix it yet. So again, if you watch the videos from last summer, you'll see when we rented the equipment, we were able to get all this stuff done. And it was very expensive to rent the equipment, but it ultimately paid off because it just made this property usable. And that really gave me a big sense of accomplishment and relief, because I know that we can use it. So that was the first thing. Of course, that ended up creating another project for me, because now I'm going to have to figure out how we can cross this trench here, because we still want to be able to access this part of the property up here. You can see we got a chicken coop up here, a chicken pen. We were up here camping last summer. If you watch any of the videos, we pulled the RV up the hill, and then last fall we got it down the hill to park it over in this area here for the winter. But I definitely need to be able to get across this trench. Excuse me. And so this is one of the projects I have lined up. And while it's not a big priority, I don't really have good access to this part of the property up here, other than right at the end of the retention pond area over here. I've got a little bit of a bridge I can cross, which I can get through with the tractor and the vehicle, but it's not ideal right yet. It's just kind of quickly set up when we were doing the work in this area. So it does work, but I really need to be able to cross in this area over here. So one of the projects will be to build a little bridge over here. I've got the plans in my mind in terms of what I want to do, and it's got to be able to carry, you know, the weight of tractor and the dump truck. I was just looking at something in the trench over here. I found I don't know if it was a lizard or a salamander this morning when I was digging on the other side of the property. Pretty big, about 4 or 5 inches. And I kind of felt bad because I think I hit it with a rock. But I relocated it to another area, and then when I went back to check on it, it was gone. So either it slithered off or something got it, but at any rate. So that's one of the projects I'd like to get done as soon as possible. And the reason for that is being that I have to be able to move my solar panel setup here. And this solar panel setup runs our EcoFlow. I'll open the cabin over here and show you. So you can see our well here. I've got the water line from the well underground, and it comes up to our pump house here. And this was a last minute project again. I was not really planning on having to build this. I was hoping to have its permanent home set up, but I wasn't able to get it done in time. So I kind of threw this together real quick, and this is one of the projects that ended up being, how should I say it? It ended up making more work for me in the long run. I didn't have any options really. I didn't have any choice because in this pump house, I call it the pump house, is where obviously we have our water pump. So I kind of threw this together at the last minute, and in here we have our water pump. So the water line comes up, it's right in here, comes right up through the floor and feeds the water pump. But of course, if you're going to have a water pump in here, and you can see we've got a water filter, and then we can draw water right off this line right here. I couldn't leave this to freeze for the winter, so I had to figure out how to keep it heated. And the only solution I could come up with, initially we tried electric heaters. I think I got one in the back here. It's a little electric heater. It's a little 1500 watt. Oh, the wind's catching my door, so I gotta watch it so it doesn't get blown off. But at any rate, initially I tried these little electric heaters, but they drew so much power that it just didn't make it feasible. So we ended up purchasing a diesel heater to keep this little pump house warm. And this diesel heater was able to maintain temperature in here to keep our EcoFlow generator here. This is the Delta Pro, I don't remember now. But basically, we also have the gas generator that connects to this, the generator, the battery here. And I really, really like this setup because this system is set up so that if the battery gets down to 20%, the gas generator will kick on automatically and charge it up. And you can set it with the app. You can set it to whatever you want it to. I had it set to 80. So when it got down to 20%, the generator would kick on, charge it up to 80%. Didn't happen too often. Initially, I had, I think 3 or 4 solar panels set up to keep the battery charged over here. But I ended up changing that a little bit later. The problem is with winter, as you know, here in New England, it just, the days are very short. The sunlight, you're lucky if you get 5-6 hours. So there were many days where we just didn't have enough sun to keep it charged up or to get it charged up to last us, to last through the night. So basically I gotta fix my door here. Last thing I need is for the wind to rip this door off. All right, see if that helps. So basically what I've got plugged in here is I've got the diesel heater. And this, what's nice about the diesel heater is that initially on startup, it'll draw maybe 125, 50 watts or so. But after it gets up to temperature, which is within 5 minutes or so, it kicks right down to like 20 watts or less. It's very, very good on power. Of course, the one downside is, as I said, it's a diesel heater, so it does run on diesel fuel. And so I was constantly out here. I say constantly, once a day I'd come out and top it off, particularly in the winter when it's really cold, and it would run more often. This time of year, I haven't filled it in weeks probably. The tank is big enough to last for several weeks at this point, mainly because what I figured out is that I just needed to set up a few more panels and get it wired so that we were drawing maximum power whenever we had whatever sunlight or little power that we could get from the sun on the short winter days would maximize the charge on the EcoFlow here, this battery. And that ended up working out really well. This this whole panel thing I set up rather quickly. I think I did it in an afternoon. This is some leftover 2x6 from the concrete when we poured the concrete slabs I had laying around, and I knew I just needed to put something together as quickly as possible. So this is what I ended up throwing up real quick, and I've got all the wiring here for the solar panels set up. I've got a couple panels in series, and then the two in series to parallel. And then this generator, the EcoFlow, has two inputs, a low wattage and a high wattage. And so it allowed me to actually add another panel, which I think it can take another 2 panels, but I didn't really have the place to set them up on here. So, but at any rate, so we got this set up here. Really, really helped to be able to keep this charged up for the most part. Once I figured out that I could max out the charging with the solar panels here, it just changed everything and made things a lot easier to deal with. Matter of fact, I haven't even fired this generator up in several months now. It hasn't been needed at all. Obviously, as the days get longer, and it just starts charging very early in the morning. Even on cloudy days or snowy days, it charges very well. The only thing I had to do is come out on the snowy day, keep the snow off the panels a little bit, and best we could. But basically what this is running is, as I mentioned, the diesel heater. I've got a little plug outlet here, and this is actually running. Oh, hang on one second. Oh, the wind is not my friend sometimes. So let's see. I've got, I use this as my charging station for my batteries here. So whenever I need to charge a battery, at least I have a place to do that. The other thing, I gotta put another block over here. The other thing I keep plugged in over here is on this cord runs a pump, an aerator pump, and I gotta talk about this a little bit, but I put this aerator pump on last summer because we were having a problem with the water in the well. It was very rusty and smelly. That awful smell you get from not clean water, I guess, or whatever, stagnant water. And so I put this on. It's been sitting out here all winter under this plastic. I don't know if you can hear it, but it's still running. And I got to say, probably the best investment I could have made. As you know, if you've been following the channel, we've since had our water tested, and we came out with flying colors. The water's great. We've been drinking it for several months now, a couple months at least. So that little pump, basically there's two lines that go in. One of the lines is right here, and there's another one on the other side coming around this way here. And I've got a gallon water jug, or a couple gallon water jugs, and aerator stones that are floating around on the top here and just go around in a circle constantly. And this thing is never shut off all winter. It's been running basically just the way you see it sitting here. And I got to say, it's made a big difference. So that's one of the things it does, but that doesn't use a lot of power either. Then the other items I have plugged in here is this one on the bottom is a heat tape, because this is our water line that comes in from underneath from the ground for our well. And I have this hole underneath insulated of the cabin here, because initially what happened was I ended up coming out one day and the water was frozen and kind of panicked. So I ended up throwing on this heat tape, and this is self-regulated heat tape. So I wrapped it, and that's been working really well. The other thing I have plugged in here is another power cord, and this power cord goes back all the way to, you can see I have it piped into here, and it goes all the way back through that line to the RV. And that one runs two more diesel heaters I have underneath the RV over here. And the reason I have the diesel heaters plugged in from there back over to here is because this was a much more reliable unit in terms of not turning off or suddenly shutting down. The problem with the diesel heater is when it gets up to temperature, when it's in temperature, or when it's running, you can't just shut it down. You can't just unplug it. You need to let it shut down. It takes about 3 to 5 minutes for it to shut down. So if I came out here and it was running and I hit the power button and turned it off, I couldn't just unplug it. I had to give it a chance to cool down and finish diffusing the fuel or whatever is in the diesel fuel that it was burning, because if not, it would get all loaded up. This is basically like a little house furnace because it burns diesel fuel. So it's basically the way I think about it. And it happened a couple times where I initially had them plugged into my Blue Eddy. My Blue Eddy was up here, and we were having a problem where this generator was charging the Blue Eddy for us, but unfortunately, for some reason, whenever I turned off, or when it got up fully charged and I'd shut it off, the Blue Eddy would momentarily kick off and then reboot. And that would be a big no-no for the diesel heaters. The diesel heater did not like that. The diesel heater would just not run right afterwards. It would not want to, it would smoke severely. So I ended up moving the Blue Eddy over to underneath over here under the RV, and I'll take you over there in a minute. And since then it's been working well. My only problem then was, how was I going to charge the Blue Eddy in the middle of winter if the generator's sitting over here? And I didn't want to leave this outside in the winter. This one sat outside all last winter, and while it did work, it's not really good for it, especially when we get temperatures down to 20 below zero. It wasn't uncommon to hit 10 below, 15 below quite often. So keeping it in here and keeping the temperature at about 50 degrees all winter long, this was one of the projects, as I mentioned, that ended up giving me a little bit more work and a little more to do, because I had to manage the power situation and the heat situation in here. But with that said, I ended up having to need a way to be able to charge that generator. So I ended up getting another plug, or another wire, I should say, that I ran through a separate hose because we had already got that one set up. You can see it on the ground here. So this one runs all the way back to the RV, and when I needed to charge the Blue Eddy, I would have to just come out here and plug it in, get the generator started, plug it in. And then finally, I have this outlet here, and this is a 30 amp. And this one here, again, plugs into the EcoFlow. And that one runs all the way back through this tube here. And that runs back to the RV. And what that one does is allows me to actually run the RV right off of this instead of the Blue Eddy, which I did have to do a few times on occasion when the Blue Eddy gave us problems, or I was managing power basically. And when I say I was managing power, that's exactly what I did all winter. My job was basically to manage the heat and the power. And after we were able to finally get our water tested, I'm able to draw water right off of the filter over here. And that's been working out great. So that's basically what it's come down to. If you're familiar, if you've watched the video that I put out where I ended up having to move the Blue Eddy, you might remember a moment where I said, I think I fried it. It smoked at one point when I was unplugging it. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but it ended up putting out a lot of smoke. It was still working. It's still charged and discharged. I was able to use it. I'm going to try and step out of the wind a little bit. Very windy day. So I was still able to use it, but unfortunately, I wasn't sure why it had smoked, and obviously that concerned me. I thought maybe initially it could have had something to do with a fan, and I didn't want to continue using it without knowing it was going to be running 100%. So I contacted Blue Eddy, and they ended up, because it was still under warranty, which I was very fortunate, they ended up working with us. And I ended up shipping the old one back, and they ended up shipping us another one, a remand right here. I haven't even opened it yet. Still taped up the way it came probably at least a month or two ago. And that's because we couldn't be down without this. This Blue Eddy is basically an inverter. There's no battery in here. The battery is actually underneath the RV. So the way it worked was this inverter worked with, and I'll take you inside right now to show you. And this is our little setup under here. Not very bright in here, but try to leave the door open. So under here is our little power station. This is another area that we had to keep heated and warmed up all winter. And so this is the diesel heater we used the first winter. We had everything tucked in here, so I didn't have the pump house to deal with, and that's why I say I gave myself a little bit more work with the pump house, because I had another whole kind of building to maintain with heat. So this little diesel heater, the first winter, basically just I had it set up blowing warm air underneath the RV here. And I don't know if I don't have a light, but basically I was able to monitor the temperature. Of course, with these diesel heaters, you can set a temperature and set them to keep that constant temperature. And what I did is I have a couple thermostats that I used all winter long, and this one has an app. This one has an actual little desktop kind of monitor. And so that allowed me to maintain the temperature under the RV here so that I could keep this from freezing underneath, because obviously we have, water tank under here, and our black water, gray water, and our not drinking water. Well, it's the water tank for the onboard camper here. We didn't drink out of it. We just used it for washing basically and doing the dishes and whatnot. But getting back to the Blue Eddy, this was the battery that we initially were using. This is the B300K battery that we were using with our inverter. But once that inverter had problems and I had to ship it back, I had to find another solution to go along with the battery. And come to find out, Blue Eddy, I don't know if they're discontinuing the inverter. It's called the AC300. They're replacing it now with this Apex 300. And I gotta say, this Apex 300 is an inverter and a battery all in one. So this is a standalone unit pretty much right here. You can just use this one Apex 300. I'll turn the screen on here and just show you. You can see it's at 100%. We're drawing about 70 watts currently. And we're taking in 48, basically evening out. So blowing the inverter, the AC300, and shipping it back was probably one of the best things that could have happened to me, because I didn't know about this unit until it came down to having to buy one. We ended up buying this on the Blue Eddy eBay website. On eBay, they have their own page or whatever. And this is a remand, and we got a really good deal on it. I think it was less than $1,000. But once you combine this unit with this battery, it basically doubled or more than doubled our power situation. And that ended up being probably one of the best things that could have happened, because that ended up allowing me to not have to worry too much about how to keep this charged. Again, with the solar panels, and I'll take you outside and show you what I did with those. So last winter, I only had 2 panels set up, and while it worked for the one battery that we had, the B300, it wasn't maxed out. And so you can see we have a 4th one over here. That's the one that got damaged last year. It's still working. And so I didn't see any need to put it away if it's going to continue working. We won't use it long term, but so this setup here, I've got these 2 panels in series and these 2 panels in series. And then actually it can take even 2 more. So I could put 3 panels over here and 3 panels. I just don't have the room for it. And one of the things that I always constantly have to watch for is the wind, obviously, because that's what happened to this panel over here last winter. I had them leaning up against the RV like this, and the wind caught it and just threw it on the ground and ended up getting busted. So learning from that experience, I built another little stand with some more scrap that I had kicking around right here. And this worked out really well. I didn't lose any panels this winter. And it's very windy here. We can get some very, very strong gusts of wind. We've gotten wind gusts up to 30 miles an hour. Matter of fact, you may have seen a video where I had a pallet racking system set up and the wind blew the whole thing over. But at any rate, so with this setup here, again, we were able to, even on some of the cloudy days and whatnot, the Blue Eddy just was able to keep itself pretty much charged. And so there wasn't too much to do. I didn't have to run the generator back here in the pump house too much. After I got this panel set up, figured out, the generators have been quiet for several months. I've probably used them maybe 2 or 3 times on occasion, but let me show you what I was doing. So as I said earlier, my job was basically power management. So luckily with these battery setups, they come with apps, and I'm able to monitor power in, power out, you know, the current power situation. What's nice is the EcoFlow even has a temperature monitor, so it tells me the temperature of the battery, so that was helpful. Also, it's kind of an additional temperature module. And so what would happen is, to avoid running the generator, and you can see I mentioned earlier the orange cord that comes in, which is this one right here, that comes from the pump house. And what I would do is start the Predator generator in the pump house, plug it in, and then that's plugged right into the Blue Eddy here, and I could charge it up if I needed to. And it did happen occasionally. I did have to use it 2 or 3 times. However, what I discovered was, because the diesel heaters, and you can see we've got another diesel heater here, and so I've got 2 running, this one and this one. This one, as I mentioned earlier, blows heat underneath. This one here I set up with a vent that goes and actually blows heat underneath over to here. And I don't know if you can see it under here, right here. And this is a little cubby area here where we've got the water pump, and it's basically designed to be a storage area, but it actually ended up being very beneficial, because once I was able to get heat under here, it ended up kicking heat into the rest of the RV, because I made a couple little holes in the wall in the inside, and our bedroom is right up over here. And instead of having a cold floor like we did last winter, it was just beautiful. It was just really nice, kept this whole area warm, ended up pumping extra heat inside. And so that was very nice. But, and as I mentioned, I have there's a power strip here. And this power strip is being powered from the EcoFlow over in the pump house over here, because before I got this, the EcoFlow was just more reliable for not shutting off suddenly. As I said a while ago, you don't want to shut these off. Oh, and the door just closed on me. You don't want to shut these off suddenly, because you will start having problems with them. Initially, of course, when you shut them off, they smoke, and then you try to fire them back up again, and they may or may not work. I'll try to do a better video on these diesel heaters. They've been a lifesaver. But at any rate, this is the cord, as I mentioned earlier, that comes from the EcoFlow in the pump house. And what I was doing was, because the EcoFlow was only running basically the few little things that I mentioned, I showed you earlier, the air pump and the heat tape, and it just didn't use a lot. It just wasn't using a lot of power. So once it would get fully charged or almost fully charged, I would have all this extra power sitting in the EcoFlow, and instead of using the power in here, or as you can see, we don't use a lot of power typically. We're only using, you know, even during the day here, 70, 100 watts. The biggest power consumption is basically in the morning and in the evening. If we're using a microwave in the morning to heat something up, or in the evening to cook something, that's basically the majority. But the furnace does draw about 150, 200 watts, so that could use a lot of power. So what I do is, this is my cord running the RV. That runs, unfortunately, they put the outlet for the RV is all the way on the back side of the RV, all the way underneath. It comes out on the back of the RV. So I had to run a cord all the way from the back rather, up front here. And I've got it plugged into the side. And so what I'll do is, if I want to give this a chance to get fully charged, I would just come out here and unplug that and plug it into here. And now I'm running the RV off of the EcoFlow out in the pump house. And I would use up that power out in on the EcoFlow, and instead of using the power here, and give this one a chance to fully charge. So that was like on a cloudy day or a snowy day or a day where we weren't charging very well. And I wanted to be able to rely on this one to get me through the night so that I could have the EcoFlow fully dedicated to running the diesel heaters and the other accessories that I mentioned a while ago. So part of my daily duty was to come out here. This is our, I've got several of these 5-gallon diesel cans, which we had to run to the gas station probably a couple, once every couple weeks. And basically I would just come out and top off the diesel heaters for the day and before night, I should say. And that would get us, they run quite a long time on a tank, and on the warmer days, and as you can tell, they're not even running right now, don't need them. But and there will be a day where I'll just take them out of here eventually. But on the really cold days, short cold winter days, they ran pretty much nonstop. This one's been running probably nonstop all winter. Rarely did it shut off during the day on the really cold days, the long cold winter days. So it really got to work out. And you can see I've got another one over here. That's kind of a backup. And I've got another one here that we picked up early on. It was a kind of emergency situation. Don't care for it too much, so it's kind of sitting aside. And I actually have another one, but we'll put them to use somewhere eventually, either in the greenhouse or somewhere down the road. They'll get used for something. But basically, this is our little setup here for keeping everything powered in the RV and heated in the RV, extra heat. So that's one of the things that kept me busy all winter. And one of the things we'll be working on trying to improve for next winter. That's our goal, is obviously we want to get rid of these temporary systems that we have set up and get a more permanent system, which is currently sitting in that shipping container right there. And that shipping container will be our new power station and pump house and laundry room and hopefully anything that we need for next winter. So that brings me to my next project, which, as I mentioned, we got the pads poured last fall, which we were very fortunate to get done in time. Came close, got really cold right after that, so we were lucky to be able to get these poured. But now I really have to focus on getting them moved. I have to get this container moved to this slab, and I have to get the 2 containers back here moved on to these slabs over here. So those are going to be some major project I have to do. And to help me with that, I ended up picking up some wheel kits. I had a couple options for trying to get these moved. They're pretty heavy, obviously, as you know, and they've got stuff in them. But what I ended up doing is getting these wheel kits, and we haven't tried them yet, but we're hoping that, I'm hoping that with these wheel kits on the container, I'll be able to use the tractor to move it. It'll be either a tractor and or truck. Not sure what it's going to take, but basically I have to move this shipping container because the wheels, it doesn't steer. I can only move them pretty much forward and backward. Then I can take them off and relocate them so that I can move the container sideways this way. It's all new to me, haven't done it yet, so it's going to be fun to try. But before I can do that, because I have to move that container down into this area, I have to move this. It's in the way right now because I have to be able to move this container down to this area over here, and then slide it up to the pad over here. So that means I have to relocate this setup here, not the pump house, just the panels, so they're in the way. But I'm going to move them over to the other side of this trench that I dug over here. And so that's one of the projects I have to get done almost immediately, because without being able to relocate these panels, I really can't move this container. It's kind of in the way. So that's one of the projects, and the reason being that this particular container, as I mentioned, is going to be our new power station. We've got a complete, the power station that we purchased initially. It's going to be our main power unit to power the complete property here. It's going to be, all the solar panels will be on the side, and inside this container currently is the whole setup, which has been sitting there now for a winter or two. So kind of concerning. We want to make sure that we get that set up this summer for sure. But the other thing you can see is on this pad here, I've got a couple pipes coming up, and that's because those, if you followed us from last summer, you'll know that I dug a trench under here and goes underneath the RV currently. I made it halfway because it's got to make it all the way to the other side to the pads over there. But basically what is going to happen is the water line from the well, and I've got to finish digging the trench. I've got it about 8 feet. There's a little tag in the ground here. I've got to finish digging the trench over to this cabin and get the water line buried in the conduit, which comes up here, which the container will be sitting here. It'll come up inside the container, and then from there, it'll go out back through here. And the second one here will be to run power. So I've got another trench with 2 conduits running this way underneath the RV. And again, once we get the RV out of the way, I can continue digging the trench to the pads on the other side. So, all right, this video is already going on an hour long. At any rate, so I've got 2 conduits coming up underneath this RV. And as soon as the weather gets a little bit warmer and we're definitely out of the freeze zone, we'll get all this skirting taken off the RV, and then we'll have to move that RV over to a new location for next winter. And that will be over in this area on the end of this slab over here, or in this general vicinity. Let me get turned around here. So we're going to try and get the RV, well, we're going to have to get the RV moved over to this area over here. And again, this is the area where we're going to build our barn. You can see we have 2 slabs, and those 2 slabs are we're going to park these containers, these shipping containers, on these 2 slabs. And those will be the permanent home for them. And then we will build our barn from there. But to hopefully get set up for next winter, and I'm already thinking that far ahead because that's what I have to do. As I mentioned, we're going to move the RV, and then I'll have to get finish digging the trench that comes out from there over to somewhere in this vicinity, so I can get the water and the power up to this container over here, which is going to be the container that will house our the water pump, hopefully our kitchen, restroom, bathroom, washroom, basically everything we need to make life a little bit easier for next winter. So from there, if I can get all that set up before next fall, which means we'll have to have our septic design, which has already been completed. We'll have to put that in. We'll have a septic tank and our leach field, which is up here on the hill. I'm trying to figure out where I am. Somewhere up over here. I guess it's over here. We have to dig a trench. We've already got the design done and it's all marked out, but we have to get the system installed. So that'll be another project for this summer. And in this shipping container, as I mentioned earlier, is basically jam-packed with my shop. And as you can see, it's been not very well organized, but that's all the tools and equipment I need to get this project done. But I really can't work out of that shipping container. I have to have more of a shop setup and a place where I can make sure that all my tools go in one place. What's been happening is every time I need something, I run into a container and then it gets dumped somewhere else just because I'm in a hurry or rush or trying to get it done and just not good about putting my stuff away generally. And so that leads me to my next project, which is right here. And if you remember at the beginning of the video, I mentioned we had couple pallets of concrete over here. And what happened was when they were pouring the pad from pouring those pads from last fall, they had some concrete left over, and that ended up over in this area. And it worked out pretty well in that, even though it wasn't planned and it was just kind of dumped there, and it's not level and it's not smooth and it's not really a place ideal for a shop. It did give us an opportunity to put this Harbor Freight portable garage up for the winter, and that gave me a lot of extra storage space I needed to get some of my stuff, which I've since moved out, but it just gave us some nice storage space for the winter. And you can see I have another pallet of concrete in here, and this is kind of specialty sand topper, because initially when I looked at this floor, you can see how rough it is. I just basically wanted to kind of smooth it out and make it level. But what I discovered was, you can see I've already done some leveling. I've got the garage leveled out to where it's got to be, and it ended up being quite a bit more than I initially expected. So I'll end up pouring some different concrete initially just to kind of get it squared up and whatnot. But that's the current project I'm working on right now. Is we have to, or I should say I have to get that floor done before I can start moving any of my tools and equipment into the garage. I've also got plans now, so I'm going to extend it a little bit further over here, and I've got another shipping container right there, and that one will be used in addition to the garage, because obviously I've got a 40-foot shipping container full of stuff. I'm going to need at least that shipping container in the garage here to store all of my stuff and my tools and get organized. And that has to be done because that shipping container with all the garage stuff in it has to get moved over to this slab right over here, so that we can get it set up for next. Well, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to have hopefully our kitchen, and this will basically be our utility, basically everything that we're going to need to make life a little bit better on the homestead here. It's a lot going on, a lot to think about, a lot of planning. And although I'm not in a rush, this project wasn't intended to be something that we put a timeline on. When I say project, the whole project, building and everything. It's just kind of something we want to work on at our pace over time. And even though the building permit is only good for a couple of years, we'll have to renew it. that aside, we still want to make life as comfortable as we can and progress as quickly as possible. So our limitations are obviously the weather and you know, what I'm able to get done by myself as much as possible. So again, I don't know how far I'm going to get with building the barn part, but definitely the construction part is going to be starting this summer now that we've got all the groundwork done and laid out. And it's just a matter of trying to figure out the priority in terms of what has got to get done first. I definitely have to get my shop set up so that I can move forward with getting our power station set up over here. That'll be my first objective. And once I can get that done, then we can work on getting our septic system in, getting our trench dug over here so that we can get the water lines hooked up, and then start working inside the other container before next winter. All right, so that's an hour plus video, pretty lengthy. If you've made it this far, congratulations. Again, really appreciate the people that do watch and comment, and the subscribers that we have currently. We had really hoped that our channel would be doing better. We haven't really had a lot of chance to do a lot of videos, but Brenda's been knocking them out, trying to keep you guys updated and informed on stuff that we're doing. On top of everything that I do on my end of it, Brenda's been doing a wonderful job with keeping the homestead livable, keeping us healthy. She's started making my own bread for me. She's sourdough bread and regular white bread. She's making my English muffins, making my granola bars. I'm sure there's something I'm forgetting, but she's basically making sure that we can stay healthy, because if we don't stay healthy, nothing's going to get done. So she's been really working hard. If you've been following along, she takes care of the chickens and just basically everything else that we need on that side of the homestead that is important, just as important as what I'm doing on my end. And together we really work well in that regard. As I mentioned to her, you keep me healthy and keep me moving, and I'll keep getting the stuff done that we need to keep this project moving forward. It's not going to get done this summer, but we're hoping to make some good progress. This will hopefully be the last long video. Just wanted to go over everything, and it's been a long winter, as I said earlier, and it's been difficult for me in terms of just itching to get back to work and keep moving forward. But now that the nicer weather's here, hopefully it'll stay around and I can get back to work. I'll take you on some of the projects I'm doing, obviously, as much as possible. And I look forward to getting back to work and getting your feedback and reaction on what we're doing here. So with that, I'll end the video. It's been quite long, but I want to thank you all again, and we'll see you in the next video, and we'll get started on the next project right away. Thanks again, take care, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
I'll keep praying to heaven and fighting like hell.